Welcome to Justice Talks. My name is Dr. Lori Hall, and today we're going to be talking about what trauma looks like. I'm joined by two guests. If y'all would like to introduce yourselves.
Yes, I am Cletus Bilali. I'm a PhD candidate here at the University of South Florida Department of Crim, and I'm also a trauma therapist.
All right, thank you.
And I am Ariana Cobb. I graduated from USF summer 2025. I will be going to grad school in August of 2026. And I have been in the federal government system for many years. And now I am a conflict specialist for a global law firm.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much for joining me today. So really today, I really want to unpack trauma and what it looks like. So what we mean is like when we see people behaving a certain way or responding a certain way, how do we understand trauma better by examining behaviors? And I know I've talked quite a bit in prior episodes about my own experience with complex trauma and how that has really impacted me. And I think the biggest impact for me is, and I mean, I really can't quantify, right? Because it impacts me in a lot of different ways, but the disruption in social organization, I think, has been one of the most challenging things, to the point where I don't even understand the way that I have been impacted by trauma until someone else highlights something for me. And a lot of times that's my children or people that are really close to me, because, you know, I think about things in a very different way because it's a lot of damage control. I'm doing a lot to reduce risk, reduce harm, prevent things from happening to me. And this doesn't even have to be with people that have ever harmed me. Right? This is just in all interactions. But a lot of the times when I say that I struggle with like organization of self, it is about feeling like a good person. Right? And a lot of times, you know, like my children will say, "What are you talking about?" Right? And I'm like, I want to be a better person, or I wish that I was a good person. And I constantly struggle with never feeling like everybody else is a good person to me, right? Everybody else is doing so much better and everyone else has got it together. And I'm just like this mess, right?
Yeah.
And so I struggle a lot with that. I struggle with this feeling of I'm different than everybody. I don't fit in with anybody. I don't relate to anybody. That is challenging as well. The difficulties with relating to other people. I know that we talked in prior episodes about, you know, when people tell me about their struggles or things that are difficult, you know, I'm like, okay. Right. And even in day-to-day experiences where I experience things, other people hear about those experiences and they're like, "Are you serious right now? Like, why would you allow that? Or why would you accept that?" And I'm going, girl, I grew up on the streets, okay? Like, I've had far worse. This has happened. This has happened. That's happened. This is nothing, right? And there are other people that are on the outside going, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know? And so there's always this difficulty in really, like, I guess, setting boundaries with myself, not betraying myself. And it looks a lot like, I guess, fawn response, right? I deal with a lot of flight response in ways that a lot of people don't think. A lot of people think flight response is like you just run,
Yeah.
right? But flight response is also like perfectionism.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yep. Like always having to be the best, right? You can't, it's the hustle mentality. You can't ever rest. Rest is so hard for me.
Yes, me too. Absolutely.
To like just be still. Like I've always had to earn it. And there's never anything that you can do to earn rest in my experience, right?
Wow.
And so to sit, what? No. Like I don't watch TV. I don't watch movies. I don't sit to just sit. You know, like my days are one thing after another purposefully. And I tell people a lot of times, like, I'm never bored and I never have nothing to do. If I have nothing to do, well, I have something to do.
Right.
Right. I'm going to reorganize something. I'm going to take on a new project. I'm going to go and I'm going to exercise. I'm going to go bake something. There is always something because I can't rest. And we don't often look at the inability to rest as a response to trauma. We also don't look at people that are what we say overachievers, right? High functioning people as people that have been through immense trauma. But this is really bound up in that flight response. We're running from something.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look like what you think. I'm not running from necessarily something bad happening to me, but I am running from something bad happening to me, right? I'm running from all of those fears, right? And we don't talk about that a lot. Aggression is something that we don't talk about as being something that's contextualized in trauma, right? We often say that violence and anger and aggression are horrible things, but there's a lot of times where those are responses to unmet needs, to rejection, abandonment, fear, all of those things. And so we all respond in different ways, and it looks so differently. And I'm wondering, like, in your experience as a trauma therapist, can you kind of talk a little bit about when we say, what does trauma look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you had just mentioned, trauma just presents so differently across so many different people. I think when people think trauma, they automatically go to like PTSD, and that could be an outcome of trauma, of course, or complex PTSD, as we've talked about in previous episodes. But trauma can also present as depression, anxiety, anything that you internalize, shame, guilt, or in terms of externalizing, as you had mentioned, aggression, violence. I've worked with people that deal, in order to cope with that trauma, they tend to block out using substances, right? And at one point in time that worked for them, and so even now when they're not in active danger, they're sort of relying on substances to numb a lot of the personal experiences. I love what you said about violence and aggression, because I think like one area of that I'm very interested in is interpersonal violence and and trauma and how that's sort of passed on from one generation to the next. And I think one pathway is through this violence and aggression, right? These externalizing issues of you've been impacted by trauma, and one way you pass that on to your kids or, future generations is through violence, aggression, right? Passing that on. But many people don't think of trauma in that way. Like my bias when I first started working as a therapist, back when I was in a therapy school, I was assigned to a trafficking safe house, and I walked in thinking, these trafficked girls are just going to open me with like open arms. They're going to want to do therapy and talk about, and because these were girls where complex trauma was like actively happening, like these were kids, like they were in the system. It wasn't like complex trauma wasn't something of the past. It was like happening in real time. They were not open to talking. They were not open to trusting me. And many of them, like when we do like a mental health, mental status exam, for example, we have to like discuss like how the client is presenting their affect. And many times the girls were presenting with contempt and anger. And it wasn't towards me per se, right? Which is what I had such a hard time like trying to understand. Like me with my own personal traumas, I'm internalizing it. I'm like, oh, it's me. I'm doing something wrong as a therapist. But it was really the fact of like, oh, here comes a stranger. This is like one of dozens of people I have to speak with this week, because nobody is really understanding what I'm trying to say. And they're kids also, they're teenagers, they're going through so much. And for them, even trying to understand what trauma is in and of itself is hard enough, right? Because they're kids, traumatized kids. But the other part of it too is when you have individuals working within these systems that don't, they say they're trauma informed, but they're not quite trauma responsive. Like they don't quite attribute even something like anger, aggression, or violence, running away, elopement. We had kids running away all the time, substance use. They don't conceptualize that as like an outcome of trauma. They conceptualize as like, these are kids just like being teenagers and just being
It's like
bad
behavior. Or their personality, right? They're an alpha.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are always attributed to like these individual traits that these dispositional things, right? Like this is just who they are. I'm like, surely it can't be every single kid that's walking through the door. You know what I mean? So trauma has such an interesting way of shaping how we behave, how we think, how we feel. And of course I had clients who didn't resort to just that fight, right? Like that aggression, that violence. I had kids who would isolate so much. They were so incredibly shy. Like that's how I conceptualized it when I was learning to do therapy. I'm like, they're so introverted and shy and they just don't want to open up. And they have this fear of like, if they tell me anything that they done when they were out on the streets, because these were kids that were really trafficked and horribly violated. It was so disheartening to hear. But many of them just that distrust and that shame was so prevalent, regardless of how it presented and whether it was aggression or not.
And I love that you bring up the distinction between trauma-informed and trauma-responsive. I talk about that a lot, right? So we are like nationwide on this push towards trauma-informed care, right? And I am constant, like, I teach a course on trauma-responsive policing and trauma-responsive justice. And I am trying to make that push more to responsivity, because it is one thing to be informed, to understand, right? And at face value, that looks all fine and good. But for the individuals who have gone through trauma, they need people to respond to them differently.
Yes.
Right? So, when I hear about people running away, people using drugs, people being violent, people stealing, people harming themselves or others, I hear trauma, 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 trauma. The one person that we leave out of that conversation is the people that are high functioning or successful.
Yes.
The people that don't use drugs, that don't drink, that don't, look at porn, that don't gamble, that go to work and then go to their other job. And then, they've got one master's degree. Well, let's get a second master's degree, or they've accomplished this. Well, that's not enough. Let's do more, right? We leave those people out of the conversation. But what those individuals need is people that can see them, right? All of those people. And not equate it to bad behavior or the hero, right? But see the way that they're trying to cope in their suffering, right? Especially like when we think about people with substance use disorders and people that use alcohol. So often we want to say you made a bad decision, or you are a bad person, or it's bad behavior, whatever. But really, like, we are all coping. We're all trying to find ways to deal with every experience that happens to us. The trivial all the way to the traumatic, right? We're looking for how to make sense about these things and how to understand these so that we can move on. I mean, we do this in little bitty interactions that we have at the grocery store. Like, oh, did I say that wrong? And then, we figure out, oh, like it was fine. And we move through our day, right? We're looking for ways to make sense of things, right? And if one way doesn't work, we move to the next until we find a way, right? And for myself, achieving things, accomplishing goals. I have people ask me all the time, like, what makes you feel good? Accomplishing goals. When I accomplish the things that I set out to do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, that dopamine rush beats nothing, right? There's no congratulations you can give me. There's no good job you can give me. There is no anything you can give me that gives me that dopamine rush. No hug, no kiss, no gift, nothing that can beat that feeling I get when I accomplish it, And I mean, this is from the little bitty thing to the big thing and it's goals, right? Like I have a goal to walk, between 8 and 10 miles a day. And I know a lot of people hear that and they're like, that's crazy. And to me, I'm pushing more, right? To me, I'm like, I want to get to that point where I can do 10 to 12 a day. I remember when I could only do 1. I remember going to do a half, right? And so when I do that, I'm like, that's the greatest high ever. And so we're constantly looking. I find things to try and it doesn't work and I move on, right? Until I get what I'm looking for. And individuals that use substances, that's all they're doing. They found something that works. And I mean, like, I don't blame them. Like I've got experience with drugs. I absolutely understand why people can get addicted to drugs. I'm not going to sit here and go, I just don't understand how anybody, no, like I've had fentanyl. I told that doctor, I know why people abuse fentanyl. Absolutely. That's the greatest feeling. Propofol, had it, right? I've had all kinds of stuff that I probably shouldn't list, right?
I have a family member right now going through that, and it's been
Mhm.
exposed that he's doing drugs. We
Mhm.
didn't know that because he's successful.
Oh,
You
Wow.
would have no idea. But then I got a phone call letting me know what was going on.
Mhm.
And my first reaction was, it's what he went through as a child.
yeah.
Mhm.
This is trauma. This is the like, it's coming out now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But everyone else was like, oh my God, he's like a drug addict. He's this, he's that.
Let's stay away from him.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he can't come here, and
Yeah.
I'm like, everyone needs to just calm down for a second.
Mhm.
Yeah.
These things happen to people, and they seek
Mhm.
things that make them feel, even if it's a temporary high,
Yeah.
numb. I've never done
Yes.
drugs, so I don't know how it feels, but it's
Mhm.
something that's making them feel like I'm okay right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how do we help that?
Yes.
And this person's now in his 40s, and that's years of him
Mhm.
dealing
Yeah.
with all that he went through,
Yes.
and now it's been exposed. Now everyone knows it,
Mhm.
and he's spiraling,
Yeah.
because not only this isn't a secret anymore, now he's
All the
spiraling.
shame and guilt is kind of
Yeah.
like coming to
Yes.
light, and it's
Mhm.
compounding, and
Right.
that's just unbearable. And I
Mhm.
think that, it's interesting because like this is not something that we do as adults,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We do this from like birth, right?
Mhm.
And I think that it's interesting when we look at behaviorally the manifestation of trauma and what that looks like with children. Like it's across the spectrum. You
Mhm.
have some that act out, right?
Mhm.
You have some that become, have bad, not bad, violent and aggressive behaviors. You have some that overachieve.
Yeah.
You have some that turn to gaming and scrolling. You have some that turn to, maybe promiscuity.
Mhm.
You have some that like turn to all kinds of the peripheries, right?
Mhm.
It's everywhere. But we rationalize this as poor parenting,
Yeah.
bad children, bad environment. We want to
Mhm.
say all of these things. And
Mhm.
while there may be those factors that have influence,
Mhm.
right? That underlying thing and I think it's beautiful that you're like, oh no, this is trauma. Like to get people at that place, like
Mhm.
immediately. For me, it's easy. I'm like,
Mhm.
I see something going on and I'm like, that's a trauma.
Yeah.
That's a
Mhm.
response to trauma. I even tell people, like people project, people are defensive all the time.
Mhm.
That is a trauma response,
Yes.
a way that you are responding and trying to cope with those feelings that you have, right? But I think that it's interesting because there's an evolution that occurs in what I have seen behaviorally for people across the life course. So tends to, when they're young, there's some kind of behavioral change in some capacity, right?
Mhm.
Whatever it may be, whether it's violence and aggression, running away, overachieving, eating, substance use, whatever it is, right? And they try this for a while. Maybe they dabble in a lot of things. I was a dabbler. I tried a lot of different ways to cope. And then when we get to like 20s, 30s, things change again,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I know for me, like for my 20s, like I was angry.
Mhm.
I was so angry. It was like I had an attitude. Like somebody would just say
Mhm.
something, I'd be like, "What?"
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I
Mhm.
internalized it. I was like,
Mhm.
there like I had a problem with everything, right? And I was just so like agitated all of the time.
Mhm.
And then my 30s hit and I was like, I'm not living like this. I'm not doing this. Like things have to change, and I just
Mhm.
like was like kind of like wandering around the world.
Yeah.
It was like I don't know what I'm doing with my life, right?
Mhm.
Something and then I got closer to 40s and it was like, no, this is what's changing,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
This is what's been going on, right? And so like I think that it kind of is a beautiful time period for a lot of people in their 40s because they start to get to this place where they're
Mhm.
like, no, I understand, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the previous 40 years might have been a clusterfuck, right?
Mhm.
It might have been a shit show.
Mhm.
But like I'm starting to get some bearings. I'm starting to understand like this is all because of the things that happened to me. We don't have a lot of trauma literacy
Yeah.
anywhere across the board. And we replicate these, we have like micro trauma experiences, I will say, like where we replicate things that have happened to us and we project that onto other people
Mhm.
and we perpetuate this. And we are so ignorant about trauma and understanding what it is that like one, we can't look at it and see it for what it is until we're much more experienced in life, right? We don't look at the kindergartner and go, this child is going through some stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We look at the kindergartner and we go, they have ADHD and they have ODD, and here's a medication and here's a therapy.
Yeah.
When really we need to get to the root, right?
Yes.
And then we see the teenager running away and becoming violent, maybe, being truant from school. And we say, this kid is hanging out with the wrong people
Yeah.
and they're getting involved in the wrong things. And we need to send them off to, mental health hospital or to substance abuse or something or somewhere else, right? And we don't say, this kid is really struggling with
Yes.
something that's going on, right?
Yeah, I volunteered at a juvenile justice detention center. It was just a one-day thing. And one of the things that bothered me was a couple of the boys were wearing red shirts. Everyone else was wearing different shirts. And when I asked, why are they wearing red shirts? Oh, they're bad kids. And I was just like, oh no,
Yeah.
like this is not okay. You're just singling them out.
Labeling.
And you could see the anger in them. So they were in a circle and we had opportunities to talk and a few people spoke. And I got up and the first thing I said was, you two are not bad boys.
Yeah.
You may have made some poor choices, but there's something deeper going on.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say it out loud in front of their group because I just felt like, putting red shirts on these boys
Absolutely.
just points out like, oh yeah, I am bad. So I guess I'm going to just keep being
It's
bad.
like a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yes.
like, oh, if you're going to label me as that, then I might as well be that.
Exactly.
But you point out a really good point. It's like we create systems in a vacuum. Right? We create systems outside of human experiences without being trauma responsive, trauma informed, right? And we say, oh, well, this is the way the system has to work for it to function effectively, right? And efficiently. And then we put people into the system and we do not take account for what are the implications?
Yes.
What would what would occur for us to other these individuals who've already been othered their entire life, have already been isolated, have already been branded and labeled, and a false narrative has occurred for their life, right? They didn't have the power to say, no, I'm not a bad child, right? This happened to me, right? And so then we replicate these systems and then there's no healing going on, right? And like I had that experience kind of similarly with my upbringing, I used to tell people all the time, and I still have this kind of experience, like I felt like an outsider my entire life, right? And it wasn't because I was, like different per se, but everyone in my family participated in this dysfunctional, toxic system, right? They were players in the game. And I checked out of it. And I almost felt like I had this experience like I was watching a movie. And I was eating popcorn and I was going, what is wrong with these people? Now I was experiencing trauma. Like I was being inflicted, like harm was being inflicted on me, right? But because I did not participate in the dysfunction and the toxicity, pit people against each other, blame people and hurt other people, because I didn't participate in that, then I was different. Something was wrong with me. I was bad. Right. And that occurred throughout my life to the point where like, even in my teenage years, like and the irony of all of this is my family was like extremely religious, right? My dad was a deacon. My mom was like missionary president. And like you went to church every time the doors were open. And I'm like watching this and I'm like, there was such a dissonance for me. I was like, it doesn't make sense. Like what is going on? And so then what they resorted to, so like as a child, I was bad. Right? There was something wrong with me because I didn't participate in the system. But then as a teenager, I started to speak out against religion, right? And then I became like a demon, like the devil, right? And now they were all martyrs, right? And they were above me. To this day, like that's still the dynamic, because like I will outwardly say, like, I don't believe in deities. I don't believe in God, right? And that's like my own experience. Like there was so much disconnect. Like how can you speak in one breath about how we love thy neighbor and we support each other, and in the same breath, you do all of these things? Like that just did not connect with me, right? And I always chose to live outside of that. And so like I grew up feeling like that, right? And it to be placed in a situation, I feel that way all of the time, right?
Mhm.
Where there's something wrong with me or I'm different. And when people say things, I'm like really hypersensitive to that. Like, what? And then it's just like a trigger, like it feels like all over again, right? And because I'm doing so much work and that's the thing that people don't even really recognize with people that have experienced trauma, whether it's acute, chronic, complex, developmental, whatever it is, there's so much work going on behind the scenes.
Mhm.
You know, like I'm constantly like trying to reprogram, so to speak,
Right.
because what I know and what I've experienced don't really line up.
Yep.
Right. And so I'm constantly like, am I participating in this? Right. Am I projecting? Am I being defensive? What, and of course it's like a trauma response. Like what role am I playing in my own victimization? Right. And like, it just kind of goes to like that rest. Like you never rest. It's not even a physical, it's like a mental.
Oh, definitely. Especially, earlier you mentioned 20s, 30s, 40s. I felt like my 20s, I was kind of just like, it was a blur,
Yeah.
just like I was surviving. Then I had my girls, my babies, and I was busy, with that. And then trying to get a career and doing all the things, taking college courses here and there. And then when they got a little older, it was like the anxiety I started to feel. I always say like, the way I put it is like my heart was thawing out.
Yeah.
Like my body was just starting to thaw and I was tingling and feeling and, oh my gosh, why can't I breathe? What, is this a panic attack? What is going on? Oh no. And no one was seeing it because I thought, I can't show anyone this.
Yeah.
I can't show my husband or my boss or anybody that I'm having like these moments privately. And I would literally like lock myself in the stall at work sometimes. I worked in a very like high intense work environment when I was at the courthouse. And I would lock myself and like tell myself, you have to get it together. You have to breathe. And then when there were moments to rest, I'm just sitting there like, wait, I'm supposed to be doing something.
Yeah.
No, I can't rest. Wait, I mean, this is spring break this week,
Yeah.
and on Monday, I didn't really have anything on the calendar. And my daughter's like, Mom, it's okay to just like chill with me. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But I'm like, do I need to get up? Do I need to do something?
Yeah.
Like, you're constantly feeling this feeling of, no, you got to get out. You got to do this. You got to do that. So it is something that I work on so much.
Yeah.
Even just
Can
resting.
you talk though, like, because I have this exact same experience where like I can't like stop. I can't rest. And for you, like is there anything racing through your mind telling you this? Or is it something like it's just subconscious?
I think honestly, something inside of me feels like something is an emergency all the time. It's like
Yes.
everything's an emergency. Okay, what's next? Oh, I got to do this. What's dinner? What's lunch? Next, how about tomorrow? What's on my calendar? Who do I need to email? Do I need to do this? I need to read my book. I have to read I have to go work out. I better work out because if I don't work out, it's I'm going to feel worse.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a internal alarm that just keeps going off.
I feel the exact same way. Like I should be doing something. And if I'm not doing something, then well, something's going to mess up. Something's going to go bad. Like there's going to be a problem, and I try to dissect, like, where is this coming from? Right. So like at home, I really struggle with like sitting still. I eat lunch standing up.
Yeah.
Which people are like, what? And my kids are even the same way. They're like, are you going to sit down? I'm like, no, why? I mean, it's just like, is a real quick and I'm moving to the next thing. And they're like, but like, you're eating. And I'm like, no, I'm good, And it's so like, I really struggle with like sitting still, even to the point where like, if I need to write something, like I just stand. Right? Like I'm just moving. I'm constantly doing something. And, like I work at a computer and that is so difficult to sit, right? And so like, when I work from home, right? I'll do something for 10 minutes sitting at the computer and then I get up and I go do something standing up.
Oh,
And
wow.
like, I
Mhm.
can't sit there for hours and
Mhm.
just no, it does not happen, you
Yeah.
know? And so like it's like there's something inside of me that's saying, do not sit still.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because something is going to happen.
Right.
And like I try to like figure out where that's coming from. Like, is that, from this trauma or that trauma?
Mhm.
And I really haven't been able to like dissect, with the exception of like, so like I don't really let people in my home.
Mhm.
For us, it's just because it was never safe. Something always happened. There was always violence. There was always a comment. There was always statements. There was always psychological, emotional abuse or physical abuse. And so like to allow someone to come into my home is huge. And so like, I had a birthday party for one of my children and they invited somebody into our home. And I was doing so much work at like, it's okay. Nothing's going to happen.
Mhm.
It's fine. And then you pair that with, I couldn't just function. Like
Mhm.
I'm basically like in my room waiting for this party to be over because, they're like teenagers. They don't
Yeah.
want a parent hovering.
Mhm.
And so then I'm like, I have no idea what to do. Like, but did I sit? No.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I stood the entire time in my room and like I was reading and I was doing all of this whatever, but like no, rest is not something like
Mhm.
my body will not allow me to rest. And that's something that like I would like to get better with, but I
Mhm.
just don't know how to like it's for me it's like a subconscious, but
Yeah.
there are thoughts in my mind going, like you can't stop. You
Mhm.
you
Right.
cannot just and I hear people all the time they're like, "Oh, I'm going to watch a show." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?"
Your
I'm
worst
watching a
nightmare.
show. I'm like looking at my clock, like,
I
okay.
can't even watch a movie.
Wow.
Like
Mhm.
I can't get through the movie.
Mhm.
And like even if I were to watch a show, like I have children, and they like want to watch a show with me or something. And I'm like, "Okay, how long is this?" And there are plenty of times where I'm like, I'm cooking and watching the show, right? Because
Wow.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I can't just do that,
Mhm.
And even driving is difficult.
Mm.
Like I'm listening to a podcast or I'm
Mhm.
thinking about work
Yeah.
stuff that I need to, like I'm mapping out
Yep.
an outline or I'm mapping out a
Wow.
class discussion, right? There's never a just nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah. My husband asks every morning, he'll ask me, "How did you sleep last night?" The same. I wake up like 500 times thinking about the
Oh.
whole day.
Oh my
Yeah.
And I'm like,
gosh.
every morning when he asks me
Mhm.
that question, it's going to be the same answer.
Wow.
I think that's interesting too, because you also mentioned like your body was like thawing, right?
Mhm.
And you were waking up. And I struggle with being in connection with my body,
Mhm.
right? So, like, and I'm talking like subtle cues,
Mhm.
having my own needs, right? Like, I'm a very cold natured person. Anybody that knows that I'm always cold,
Mhm.
but yet I don't wear coats. I don't take active measures to really do anything to provide the things that I need to not be cold,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know? Um, I struggle with like cues that your body gives you. Like if I have a headache, there's not something that goes, "Oh, go take Tylenol,"
Mhm. Mhm.
right? I just suffer
Mhm.
Yeah.
until somebody else is like, "Do you want Tylenol?" And then I'm like, I mean, I don't, maybe I'll get it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll get it. Even like food cues to like know
Mhm.
when I'm full, know when I'm hungry. Like I just am not
Mhm.
connected to my body, even to this day, right? I haven't had the thawing,
Mhm.
haven't had it. I struggle with like being able to recognize when I've even like if I'm around people and my body tenses up, it's not till they're gone that I'm like, oh, you know?
Mhm.
And so I think that we just our trauma literacy
Mhm.
is just not where it needs to be for us to be able to really understand
Mhm.
how we can go about creating systems, structures, cultures, environments that are conducive to the human experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all so much for joining me, and it's been wonderful. And you are watching Justice Talks. We'll see you next time.